My discussion today is a little bit on technology. Technology for me is either frustrating or sometimes works the way it's supposed to. I'm a Mac user. I lived in China for 2 years as a Fulbright scholar and brought my Mac computer and I went through hell in China with my Mac. Anything I tried to plug it into, it wouldn't accept it. So technology problems already. Mass media is seen in nearly every facet of our daily lives. In our society, there are televisions in almost every room in our house, internet access on at least one, if not more, computers in our home, and standard or digital radio in our cars and on our phones. The technological, see if this works. So far it works. So I'm happy with the technology so far. Technological limits are endless. We have the ability to communicate with people anywhere, all of the time. And this has greatly impacted our professional as well as our personal lives. Certain differences exist between information, entertainment, and communication in today's society, particularly in relation to mass media. Although all of these concepts are seen daily in various forms, there are important differences between them. These various media interactions have converged in our current society in a number of ways, and they have impacted social relations through the way we communicate with one another. The changes have been for better or for worse, but have unmistakably impacted the way we communicate and interact with people in our lives. Lauren Nelson is a contributor to a website that I ran into recently called eHow. She says there are potential common communication roadblocks that we need to understand and take into consideration as we incorporate new technology into our daily lives. Nelson says while many would consider the amplified speed in communication via technology a plus, it also presents drawbacks. The speed at which an email, text, or instant message can be sent can lead to emotional responses we don't necessarily mean, inflaming the conflict at hand. She says it's sometimes too tempting to shoot back an email or a Twitter tweet as quickly as possible, and in our haste may find ourselves making a number of errors or making people very angry. This might lead to confusion over the intended message and may even damage our professional credibility. Technologies used for communication have changed the dynamics of human interaction. It's common to see people multitasking while communicating with someone else, and you probably do this as well. Maybe you're talking on the phone while surfing the internet, or checking email and using your mobile phone simultaneously. Communications technologies has made this all possible. However, you may think that you're saving time by engaging in these multiple forms of communication at the same time. But a survey conducted by the Redoubt Reporter, an Arkansas newspaper in the United States, found that the net effect is that the quality of the communication suffers if you can't give your undivided attention to the person you're communicating with. The internet has made it possible to keep in touch with people from anywhere in the world, and we communicate on the go using text, messaging, and cell phones. But there have been complaints and much research done about technology and how it's led to a decrease in face-to-face communications. Communicating with a person, allows you to view and watch their nonverbal cues, such as a smile or a frown. And this is another layer of communication. Technology does not allow us or allow people to catch these sorts of nonverbal cues. Dr. Pam Hayes, a psychologist from Alaska, believes there is the potential for greater richness in face-to-face interaction because you lose the body cues and facial expressions when you're doing work on the internet. She says the subtle forms of communications are lost over the internet. A study conducted by Oxygen Media and Lightspeed Research found that 1/3 of women, how many women do we have? We have quite a few, between ages 18 and 34. Raise your hand, women. Facebook, supposedly you check your Facebook pages first thing in the morning before you brush your teeth. And of the more than 1,600 adults surveyed on their social media habits, 39% are self-described Facebook addicts. About 57% of women in the 18 to 34 age range say they talk to people online more than they have face-to-face conversations. And 21% admit to checking Facebook in the middle of the night. Now, I've been in China for the summer. I'm married to a wonderful Chinese woman. And since May the 28th, we went to central China. It's called the Kaifeng, the Hunan province. And China blocks Facebook. I've had no access, but I did see on my Yahoo that many people sent me congratulations for my birthday, which is horrible because I can't respond and say thank you. Also, China blocks Google, so a little bit of a problem there, but I guess the advantage for me is I have been away from Facebook for more than a month. The Wall Street Journal and other newspapers found that technologies like email, texting, and instant messaging remove these important contextual cues or clues and can lead to misunderstandings. Sarcasm and jokes without nonverbal cues can cause frustration. Through emoticons, or smiley faces, these different expressions are sometimes used to substitute traditional nonverbal cues, but they fall far short of what face-to-face communication can provide. Text messaging has become the easiest and the most common way that young people communicate with one another. In 2010, it was reported that 75% of young teens aged 12 to 17 owned cell phones, and nearly the same number of those teens are text messengers. Text messaging is a more preferred form of communication among this age group than using voice communication over a cell phone, talking on a landline, face-to-face conversations, social networking sites, or email. Of teenagers who are text messengers, 1/2 of them send 50 or more text messages a day. And 14 to 17-year-old girls are the most active text messengers. We interviewed one male student at my university, University of Northern Colorado, about 2 years ago, who admitted to texting 26,000 text messages in 1 month. That's an average of about 1 text every minute for 15 hours straight, every day, for 30 days. With the growth and expansion of technology, a new language has been born, including a variety of abbreviations. Here's your morning quiz. How many of these do you think you know what they represent?
Some of them.
LOL.
Talk to you later.
Away from keyboard.
Roll over.
I'm not going to say.
Okay, I don't know that. So I looked them up. So laughing out loud, talk to you later, away from the keyboard. The one that's not used very often is the bottom one. It's the one that have the stars next to the ones more common, I guess. LMIRL. Now the bottom one is considered to be used exclusively in internet interaction. And as I mentioned at the bottom here, there are more than or over 9,080 slang words, abbreviations, and acronyms used as internet slang. If one is not familiar with this form of slang, technology obviously will limit effective communication more than it will help it. Another downside to communication technology is that even as we communicate with more and more people using various technologies, some people feel more isolated than connected. The Arkansas newspaper that I cited before says a study done in the 1990s on the effects of the internet use on social well-being. The study found that some people who use the internet a lot actually felt more isolated than before. It's kind of obvious. A.C. Nielsen is one of America's oldest television ratings services or groups. They recently surveyed a number of 4 to 6-year-olds and asked them to choose between watching TV and spending quality time with their fathers. 54% of them said they would rather watch TV. Also, according to the same survey, the average parent spends 3.5 minutes a week having meaningful conversations with their children. Technology is creating a generation gap that makes parents feel as though they don't relate or can't relate to what their kids are doing. Now, back in 2010, as part of its Digital Diaries campaign, there was an organization called or an internet security company called AVG. They alarmed parents with this discovery that on average, children have an online footprint by the time they're 6 months old. The company found in its research even more eye-opening statistics about how much more adept kids are at digital skills than life skills. According to this same study, a whopping 69% of the 2 to 5-year-olds can operate a computer or computer mouse, but only 11% can tie their shoelaces. 69% 2 to 5-year-olds can operate a mouse or deal with an iPad Surface, but only 11% can tie their own shoelaces. So what effect does all this media exposure have on people? Common Sense Media reports that the average child spends 45 hours a week watching television or other electronic media. 45 hours a week. That's more than we're supposed to work in America in a typical week, which is an 8-hour day, 5-day week. With the average play time of video games, about 8 hours a week, some 8.5% of America's youth are clinically addicted, averaging about 16 to 18 hours a week. So it's also reported this overexposure of media is leading to obesity, tobacco use, premature or undesirable sexual behavior, drug use, alcohol use, depression, low academic achievement, and ADHD. Ezekiel Emanuel, a lead researcher for a New York Times study, says, the results clearly show that there is a strong correlation between media exposure and long-term negative health effects to children. Now, something we don't hear about, I'm not going into this to any depth, but we don't hear any more about the fact that there's radiation and that our brains are getting fried or cancerous as a result of holding our phones to our ears. We don't hear that, but that's part of it as well. As more students continue to acquire and update their cell phones, iPods, and gaming systems, today's technologies or impact on effective communication has become more pronounced. The District Chronicle newspaper in Washington, D.C. reports that teachers trying to convey messages through lessons and textbooks find that students aren't texting, they're playing or listening to music instead. A study conducted by the researchers at the University of Haifa in Israel, published in January 2013, a bit of research that focused on 9 to 12th grade students at 3 different high schools. Of the 591 students that they surveyed, a whopping 95% said, now you're talking about in the classroom, 9th to 12th grade. 95% said they are regularly sending emails or texts during classroom lessons. while 94% said that they browsed file-sharing sites or social media sites like Facebook. Listening to music is another popular classroom activity, according to the 93% of students, while 91% admitted to actually talking on their phones during class. Joe, are you on your phone right now? No, okay.
Sorry, what did you say?
Overall, 60% of students use their cell phones in class, with 10th graders the most aggressive cell phone users, and the 12th graders picking up their phones the least, according to the survey. This may present a sobering reality check to many educators in the K through 12 schools who have been looking for the best ways to incorporate digital tools into their classrooms and into their teaching. Already the number of web-connected computers per student has rapidly increased across America. With personal devices, students have more control over their own tools and the ability to hide their online activities, particularly on phones with small screens. So what was the conclusion of the university's study? Based on our findings, there is almost no moment during any class when some pupil isn't using their cell phone. Not only does this mitigate the teacher's ability to communicate lessons, but it hurts future communicative action or interaction between the teacher and the student, in that it conveys a lack of respect. Another study conducted by 2 psychologists and reported by America's MSNBC News showed that college students who use Facebook while completing their homework wind up getting 20% lower grades than students who don't have the social networking site in visual range or even running in the background. Facebook users had a typical grade point average of 3.06. With non-users, the average was 3.82 in the 19-year-old to 54-year-old group. 219 university students were surveyed. Cheating has also become endemic, with the availability of camera phones to take photos and post exam questions for other students to see. Millennials. How many of you are millennials? That would be 1979 to 1999. Anybody in here? A couple of you? Okay. You are known as Generation Y and are broadly defined as those born between those years and are more inclined to cheat. Cheaters, please stand up. More inclined to cheat to get ahead than in past generations. Now, that's not my observation. That's according to Professor Barbara Keats, who is an associate professor of management at Arizona State University. Millennials number over 80 million in the United States and constitute over 15% of the current workforce. Professor Keats argues that this generation has grown up in a very different social context, growing up with parents who tried solving their problems for them and who shielded them from moral and ethical uncertainty, and who were raised in an achievement-oriented society where there has been more tolerance for petty corners. Most surveys of college students today indicate the widespread use and acceptance of cheating. A recent survey found that 1/3 of all students admitted to cheating on an exam. 1/2 admitted to cheating on a class assignment. 2/3 admitted to cheating at least once during their college career. And 2/3 have seen classmates cheat on exams or assignments. Surprisingly, 3/4 of those in that survey believe that cheating is not justified under any circumstances. Finally, 1/2 of the students surveyed believe that their faculty at their university are to blame because they do not try to catch cheaters. According to Anita Satterley, students continue to utilize standard methods of cheating, such as cheat sheets, copying off of another student's test paper, or telling friends in the next class period what was covered on the exam. With access to the World Wide Web, and now direct access to the internet via cell phones, the opportunities to cheat are much more readily accessible than they were 10 years ago. The kids seem to have it down to a science. Student takes a test in the morning, snaps a quick picture with their smartphone, and suddenly the entire class has it. Test questions and answers are posted usually on Facebook, and students carry water bottles with notes written on them or scraps of paper into the tests for additional help. Satterley says that there has been a perceptible culture shift surrounding cheating. Students band together, sharing homework and test advice in a common understanding that they simply have to survive until they reach their goals, dream colleges and dream jobs. One book titled Cheating in College, Why Students Do It, What Educators Can Do About It, was published in 2012. In their book, the authors presented their findings at American universities, outlined their causes of student cheating, and they offer solutions. The authors say cheating habits among college students develop prior to coming to the university, often through the use of portable electronic devices, with more than 2/3 of college students engaging in some form of cheating. They state that a major shift has occurred in cheating-related attitudes and that it is rampant. It is rampant in professional schools. Now, as much as I can talk about the negative impacts of technology, there are and continue to be a number of positive effects that have impacted communication. Cell phone service is much more reliable and consistent than it was in the 1990s in the United States. With smartphones and mobile internet and email access, colleagues can discuss issues without having to attend meetings. In addition, people can communicate with other branches of the firm or other firms by telephone, email, fax, and video conferencing. This saves time, the inconvenience and the cost of traveling to meet with distant business associates. And I'm hoping that conferences like this are never put on the satellite feeds where you don't get the opportunity to come and meet people face to face and enjoy not only wonderful discussions, but also the communities and new places around the world. That's my wish. Much as there's technology, I still prefer and love to travel and meet people like yourselves. The constant accessibility, though, has caused a professional, it causes a disadvantage in that it can be a personal burden. I'm sure many of you who are carrying around your phones or iPads or whatever are still in contact with either business associates or your schools or wherever you're from. Back in the days where BlackBerry was most popular, it earned the nickname Crackberry, referencing a growing addiction to connectivity and fast-paced lifestyle. Technology has made it easier for families to keep in touch with friends and relatives by text and email. Instead of having to rely on physical photographs being sent every couple of months, new parents can now send photo text messages to proud grandparents every day. Video telephone calls made on Skype and other platforms allow parents on overseas trips to talk to and see their kids. Members of the military can also keep up to date with their family affairs and receive encouragement via email while deployed. Noreen Wainwright is an eHow contributor. I'm going to refer to this again, this website, eHow. She says the only time that this can become a problem is when technology is the only mode of connection, which can make a traditional family member feel very isolated. As people's ability to record events on their mobile phones and communicate with people from all corners of the world increases, it is becoming more and more difficult for repressive regimes to control their populations. This seems to herald a new era of openness in politics. According to David Romano, who is a professor at the University of Toronto in Canada, modern communication methods make it possible for feelings of bitterness to be rapidly channeled into mobilization and action. One example was the launching of the online petitions of protests against the execution of prisoners in countries such as Iran. Technology has greatly expanded news for the public. We are able to communicate about events as they happen on Twitter, Facebook, WeChat, for those of you who are Chinese, QQ, also Chinese, and a variety of news tickers that can be downloaded to our phones or desktops. Artistically, the internet has opened whole new opportunities to musicians, artists, video makers, and writers. Social websites and blogging enable people to express themselves and can occasionally lead to success in their chosen field. Remember Susan Boyle? Susan Boyle's story, for those of you who aren't aware, is an example of how a YouTube clip from a UK talent show launched the singer into global consciousness and fame. Carlos Scapero is a writer for the social networking site ATL Work. He says technology adds a new dimension to the old boys network, enabling people from different walks of life to make many useful career and business contacts. Now, with all that digital tools, connectivity, and social media aspects bring to journalism, one of the most interesting fallouts has been the intensification of social connections, connecting the world as a single place, as our previous keynote spoke about, creating a greater sense of awareness of bias, opinion, and raw news. This intersection of globalization and journalism defines an important and growing field of research, particularly concerning the public sphere and spaces for political discourse. Moreover, the internet has changed the way we communicate news by giving literally anyone a voice through blogs and websites, and can often impact the stories that journalists cover. The dissemination of information has always been at the heart of the role of journalism in society. And over the past 15 years, a number of technological advances have accelerated this process to extremes many would have considered impossible. The internet, when combined with the rise of home computers, has become a gargantuan forum for public opinion via social networks like Facebook and YouTube, and in a completely revolutionary way has facilitated the growth and spread of journalism. Another technology that has changed the face of journalism is the mobile phone. Modern smartphones provide both a portable method of instant communication on a global scale, while inbuilt cameras put the ability to document an event into the hands of an amateur. Obviously, such a convenient technology has a huge variety of uses, and in the case of journalism, the effect has been monumental. Journalists in the field now have more contact with their officials and general public than in the past. But arguably, the impact has been the creation of so-called citizen journalism, and concerns of reliability and accuracy have come into play. For those of you not aware, citizen journalism is the concept of members of the public playing an active role in the process of collecting, reporting, and disseminating news and information. In the past, the documenting of an event relied on reporters being at the right place at the right time. Now, however, the public reports events almost autonomously via camera phones on the internet. The Libyan rebellion of late 2011 was highly politically charged. The most Western news companies considered the location too dangerous. However, footage was captured by the participants themselves, and it was the amateur footage that most people here and further west back in America saw. The expansion of citizen journalism and social networking has also meant that journalism itself has become far less centrally controlled. That is, major news organizations or corporations publishing the news they thought the public was most interested in. Today, news corporations have to compete with a far larger news distribution service than themselves, one that is both self-regulating and self-created. Unfortunately, these new technologies also provide opportunity for unethical practices, which brings journalism into disrepute. I can spend hours and days talking with you about the ethics of how things have changed and how today, as journalists, receiving information from all around the world from people we don't know. How can we find out if that is credible before we actually publish it or put it on as a newscast? In most cases, we don't. We put it on the air and just let it go. The 2011 phone hacking scandal concerning news of the world, for example, was facilitated purely by the internet, computers, and mobile phones. And this has led to an attempt to try and crack down on unethical journalism practices. All in all, the effects of technology on journalism recently has created a renaissance in the way journalism thinks of itself. People are more connected on levels greater by orders of magnitude than ever before. The media is bowing to the will of the public domain, and citizen journalism is undermining the old concepts of who provides the news and who the audience is. It doesn't require much speculation to see how the likes of Facebook and Twitter are influencing journalism. Broadcasters from the BBC to NBC to CNN are already incorporating social media feeds into their programming. Whether it's displayed in a constant stream online or it's read as a voiceover by anchors or presenters, the presence of social media is being felt. Question remains, though, how will this technology evolve? And what will be the impact for broadcasters as well as news consumers? Furthermore, what are the other technology trends that are likely to affect journalism? And how can the newsroom prepare or try to preempt these changes? Affordability and accessibility have led to a proliferation of devices on which to consume news and other media. Traditional consumption took place largely through television, print, radio, and later personal computers. Over the past 5 years, mobile, smartphones, various types of e-readers, tablet devices like the iPad have become omnipresent. Given the experience of mobile content, more specifically mobile TV, it's clear that most consumers will continue to maintain multiple devices. While the resolution and processing power will increase on these smaller devices, the user experience is quite different from watching a large screen television. And as technology evolves, the amount and the quality of 3D programming and even higher resolution video and digital images will increase on traditional TV broadcasts, making this differentiation even greater. Add to this the preference of users to have choices in the selection of devices, and it seems that complete device convergence is unlikely. How many of you have more than one electronic device here? In other words, mobile phone and maybe an iPad or something else, or a computer and a mobile phone. So the research seems to say that, yeah, you can continue to do this. You can continue to have your toys. They're not going to force on all of us one device, which is going to be everything to itself. The opportunity on the convergence dimension lies more with content producers. Media consumers are likely to want their content on the best available device at a particular time. For example, the average person sitting on a train on her way to work, it might be most convenient for her to receive the news on her mobile phone. If she's already at work, her PC, Mac, or the tablet device might be more convenient. When she's home at night, she might prefer her large screen TV. The content producers, however, currently need to tailor their content for each device. That means they effectively need to reproduce, usually with a lot of effort, the content for TV, for proprietary tablet devices, for mobile phones. For newsrooms of the future, the challenge lies in establishing a versatile content distribution framework. Much like object-oriented programming, the idea is to create content modules that can easily be pulled by your devices. You can grab what you want from different locations, of course. This includes everything from text articles and sound clips to varying qualities of video content. The content creator will need to produce these modules to the standards specified, and the idea is for new devices to be built with these universal standards in mind. From a device manufacturer's point of view, convergence in terms of device capability is where the opportunity lies. If the average person only has a television at their disposal at the moment, they should still be able to do more than just watch TV. As you're aware, the latest televisions already include internet capability, so viewers are now communicating over Skype and surfing the net while watching TV. Whichever side you're on, the debate seems to mostly focus on delivery systems and business models, print versus digital, display ads versus pay per click, and so on. But all this geek speak loses sight of a more fundamental problem. With each passing year, young people are becoming less interested in news, regardless of how it's delivered. Statistics bear this out. Both newspaper circulation and network newscast ratings have long been in decline, and the audience that remains grows even older. Even morning news shows, once thought immune to such trends, are now losing viewers. A Harvard University survey found that only 1 in 20 teens and 1 in 12 young adults reads a newspaper on a daily basis. Online news fares little better. Recent study by IBM's Media and Entertainment Group found online news consumption has dropped among young adults, but risen among older consumers. The findings suggest that the newspaper industry needs to decide even faster how to make its online offerings economically sustainable. Dorian Becoyle, a reporter for Poynter Institute in Florida. Her findings were published on the Poynter online website and indicated that in 2008, roughly 64% of 18 to 24-year-olds said they had viewed a newspaper online within the last year. 2009, that dropped to 54%. The figures are even more worrisome when you consider that the study just measured whether a respondent had read online news at all, even only once in the last year as part of this survey. Survey questioned 3,327 people internationally, 900 from the US, in a random sample constructed to match the digital media consuming population. This may help explain the low figures, as people in different parts of the world may use different platforms as their main source of news. Becoyle suggests that to reach this group, it may be necessary to use social media, like Facebook, that news organizations don't control, but where 80% of them say they regularly interact. Of course, Facebook is not the only answer, and the content of newspapers should be under constant scrutiny as well. By contrast, people aged 55 and older recorded a nearly equal increase in online newspaper consumption. I teach at the University of Northern Colorado, as I mentioned. At the start of every semester, I ask my students in my journalism classes, like news writing or broadcast news writing, I ask them how many read a newspaper or news on a website on a daily basis, website or newspaper. Typically, maybe a third or a half might raise their hands. If this is the response to a journalism class, think about what it might be from an art history class or someone in some other major. Why don't young people follow the news more closely? In part, it's difficult for them to see how they are affected by current events. We live in a large, powerful, and relatively insulated country, and it's easy to feel immune to the boom and bust cycles of the global economy. If you're a student still delivering pizzas and don't have a house mortgage or a retirement plan. America is still at war against terrorism, but unlike Vietnam, there's no draft. And unlike earlier wars that we had, no national sense of shared sacrifice. And yes, we were attacked on 9/11 in a way that was once unthinkable. But for an 18-year-old college freshman, the New York Twin Towers fell 3/4 of a lifetime ago for them. All of this is no excuse. As citizens, we have a duty to be informed about the world around us. But if young people don't follow the news, we can place the blame mostly on those in the news business. But some of the blame lies with our educational system and with parents. I'm finishing up here because I know I'm out of time. For the first half of the 20th century, journalism was regarded largely as a trade. Barriers to getting in were low. Typically, all you needed was a high school degree. Then journalism schools came along, many of them staffed by theoreticians and academicians rather than real reporters. They sprang up across the United States. Journalism became a middle-class job. Pay got better. Newspapers, especially the larger ones, took themselves very seriously. No longer could a talented kid just out of college get a job, especially not in New York or Chicago. By the 1990s and 2000s, newsrooms were increasingly dominated by baby boomers or approaching middle age. Not surprisingly, the tone and the content of those papers reflected the mindset from the news sections to the arts and entertainment pages. If music critics raised on the Beatles and the Rolling Stones struggled to keep up with grunge and hip-hop, is it any wonder that the news business has been slow to respond to the internet revolution going on around it? Now the news business faces the toughest time in history. Thousands of journalists have lost their jobs. Dozens of papers, large and small, have closed, and many others bankrupt. The Great Recession and the transformation of so-called legacy media in the digital age have shaken the industry to its very core. Yet most of the hand-wringing analysis still focuses on the purveyors of news and not on the consumers of news. To hear some media experts tell it, if we just shut down the presses, go all digital, and find workable business models, readers will follow. But will they? Will young people suddenly become avid news consumers when the digital revolution or transformation is complete? The evidence suggests not. And while solving journalism's logistical problems seems tough but doable, discovering how to capture the attention of a generation that cares little for news in any form is another matter entirely. Thank you.